fantastic scuba diving site, I'm told. But I don't scuba dive. So I'll just trust them. Watch this, the old one-handed castaroo. There it goes. The Upper St. Lawrence is, well, kind of hard to define. Depends on who you ask, really. For this episode's purpose, we're going to view it from a small power boater's perspective, how far you can go in about a 17.5 footer, not getting into all that seaway nonsense that you have to. For me, the end point is going to be the Eisenhower Lock, one of the 2 American locks in the St. Lawrence Seaway. And here in Brockville is the other extreme. Depending on which way you're traveling, it's either the start of or end of the Thousand Islands. And Brockville's pretty cool. A lot of history here. First of all, it's the oldest incorporated town in Ontario, 2 years older than Toronto. It's the only municipality that owns any of the Thousand Islands, about 30 or so of them. They had the foresight to say, hang on a second, those seem like good parks, and they've got them. The city of Brockville Islands can be accessed during the boating season, so that's mid-May to mid-October. Now, there is a fee for docking, and mooring fees must be paid in advance through the city online. It also is home to some transportation history because, of course, back in the day, boating was for industry, not for recreation. And behind me was a big industrial port. Well, what do you do when you offload a ship? You got to put it on a train. Well, the oldest town already had all this stuff built up. So what are you going to do? Have a railway go all the way around? No, they did this instead. This is Canada's first railway tunnel. It opened in 1860, but only lasted 100 years. Though in 2017, they put down a new floor and some lighting, and trains are rolling through it one more time. Choo, 3, 2, 1, choo, choo. Nice. And so let me get technical with you for a second. This is a boat. This is a trailer. This is what we mean by saying trailer boating. And that means we're gonna need a ramp, which is over there. You'll also notice that I'm over here. I'm gonna deal with the cover and the lines and getting prepped over here, not on the ramp. Believe it or not everyone knows that. This is the basics of boat ramp etiquette. Get ready away from the ramp, don't block it, and that way you're using it as little as possible. That way you're not in anyone else's way, because we don't want someone in our way. Easy peasy, we're all here to have a good time. Where's the production assistant to do all this for me? Before we splash this boat, we've got the shiny new propeller, so I can talk about this. What do all these mysterious numbers and letters mean on the side? Well, believe it or not, they mean something. This one says 13.5 by 15 PRH. So the first number is always the diameter of your prop. So that means this propeller has a 13.5-inch diameter. Then the next one is the pitch, so a pitch of 15. You might be looking at this and saying, hang on, that's not a 15-degree angle. Well, it's not degrees. This too is inches. So the pitch of a propeller is the theoretical distance that it would travel through a solid. Like imagine this was going through wood or something like that. In one rotation, this would travel 15 inches. That's what this angle means. So what do the different pitches do? Well, some are better for acceleration, some are better for top speed, same with the diameter. Now, if you buy a brand new boat like this one, they will have already done all that hard work for you. If you're replacing yours or want to dial in your performance, well, that's what you're gonna be fiddling with and changing there. And if you're not sure, speak to your local service department or boat dealer and they can help you out. But that's what that means. See, we're laughing and we're learning. 15 inches. In the crowd, show them how you feeling now. If you watched season 2 of Waterways TV, the big North American focus, I took a 30-year-old pocket cruiser, a 1994 Monterey 265 from Toronto to Montreal to New York City, and I had to go through 5 of the locks in the St. Lawrence Seaway. The choke point is right here in Iroquois. That's where the locks start, but I don't want to deal with that lock. Instead, if you are less than 8.5 feet, that's the guaranteed clearance, you can get through this. This is the Iroquois Dam. Now, it's not a hydroelectric dam. There's giant gates right above me. They will drop down and either keep the water in the Lake Ontario side or let it flow through, and you can feel the current going through there. But when the gates are up and the sign is going, smaller boats can go through there and not have to worry about the timing of the lock that's on the other side of that berm right there. If you're in a bigger boat, you're gonna have to go through the seaway and deal with all that fun stuff. Worth noting, and I think this is great, you know it was designed by boaters. They have an upbound gate and a downbound gate, which are different. It's not the same passage. So as long as you're paying attention to the markings, you will not come across someone coming through the gate at you. Even still, smart to slow down a little bit when you go through, but you are gonna have to keep in gear. There is a current here, of course. Unless you failed geography in a North American high school, wherever you went, you'd know that all the water from the Great Lakes comes down to the St. Lawrence and works its way out into the Atlantic. This is the choke point for all of that. So if they want to keep the water on the Lake Ontario side, all those doors close down. But right now, they're all open. But I don't know if you can see, but we're sliding sideways at a reasonable clip. So unless you're filming a TV show, don't hang out here. But we are, so I'll do what I want. And some people go ripping through here, I've seen, but I'm a big believer in not going too fast near giant pieces of concrete. But that's just me. There's 2 things I don't do on this show. Tell you how to fish and tell you about different types of boats. Other than this segment, I'm gonna do both. So this is called a drop shot rig, and you got the little weight at the bottom, it bounces along, and this little, you know, plastic minnow swims along, fish are like, ooh, lunch, and come up and snag it. So I'm gonna send that down, and I'm gonna answer a question I get an awful lot. People ask me about fishing boats, and my question is, what kind of fishing boat? They say, what do you mean by that? I mean, what kind of fishing boat should I get? I'm like, that's like asking what kind of footwear, because there are a bunch of different types. This is a fishing boat, but this Princecraft Sport 175 is considered a fish and ski, or a family-friendly multi-species. Multi-species boats, they have a slightly higher freeboard. You can take them in all kinds of different types of water. A bass boat are the ones that are really low to the water, basically flat all the way with a huge motor on the back, and they go ripping around. That's what you see at, you know, the Bassmaster Classic and stuff like that. Then if you go down to Florida, you're gonna see a lot of center consoles, but a lot of skiffs and bay boats and flat type boats. If you go out to the Pacific Northwest, you're gonna see things like Kingfishers and Hughes Craft, pilot house style boats where you can go out trolling for salmon out in the Pacific. And then you can also fish off a canoe or a kayak. So a fishing boat, there isn't really one. There's all different kinds. It's where you're gonna boat and what you wanna do with it. It's important to note also, while the camera's rolling, that I'm purposefully not catching fish so as not to ruin the take. I don't know if not many people know this, but Bob Azumi calls me for tips. I generally say that fishing is best enjoyed with friends and family, and it is, usually. But There are some magic days that you can have by yourself out on the water, and this is one of those perfect moments. 5 p.m., St. Lawrence River, beautiful. The biggest waves are from the currents and the boats passing by. But also important to note is the etiquette of fishing, both for those who are the anglers and those who are the passers through. If there is a marked channel, don't fish in the channel, because you're the problem if there's a close interaction. And if you're a boater and you're outside of the channel, going to a marina or a dock or what have you, and you see a boat with lines in the water actively fishing, particularly if they're trolling and they're being dragged behind them, give them a wide berth like you would a sailboat, because they can't get those lines up from 200 feet in a minute. And then you're the problem if you cut too close. So let's all share the waterway, shall we? Civility lessons from Uncle Stevie. And fish! No.
In the crowd, show them how you feel.
Canada and the United States share the longest international border in the world, and most of it's land, but there are major stretches where water is the boundary. For example, the Detroit River between Windsor, Ontario and Detroit, Michigan has the Ambassador Bridge, which is the busiest border crossing in North America. The Upper St. Lawrence River is another of the long stretches of international waters, but unlike the relatively straightforward Detroit River, the border here weaves around the islands, and it can make it a bit confusing. So what's the deal with boating along and across the international border? What can you bring? And when do you need to report when you've crossed that dotted line? For the answer, I went to the authority. Literally.
Hi, everyone. I'm Adam James. I'm superintendent with the Canada Border Services Agency. For our traveling public, entering Canada by boat is a popular mode of transportation. Actually, since 2019, there's been over 96,000 marine conveyances enter Ontario alone. And in terms of travelers, over 710,000 travelers in Ontario alone. And also since 2019, nationwide, we've had over 11 million travelers enter the country. Visitors can enter Canada by boat. Similar to Canadians, they must report at a designated CBSA marine reporting site. Upon arrival, they need to have all the travel documents with them, including proof of citizenship. For our foreign nationals visitors, please check the CBSA directory, as visa requirements may be applicable. Upon arrival, you'll contact the CBSA at 1-888-CAN-PASS. A frequent question we often get asked is, am I required to report in if I'm in Canadian waters? Examples of a U.S. fisherman fishing in Canadian waters on the Detroit River or St. Lawrence River. The short answer to that is, if you anchor, you are required to report into the CBSA. And if you come to shore, you are required to report at a designated CBSA reporting center by contacting 1-888-CAN-PASS. Simply being in Canadian waters does not require a report to the CBSA. A question we receive from boaters entering Canada is, am I allowed to bring any alcohol, cannabis, or cannabis-related products and firearms into the country with me? Certain amounts of alcohol are allowed to be imported into Canada duty and tax-free. The list of your exemptions are on our website. Any cannabis or cannabis-related products require a Health Canada permit with you in your name at the time of importation. Any non-restricted firearms, such as a hunting rifle, can be temporarily imported up to 60 days at a $25 fee with a temporary importation license. A question we receive from boaters entering Canada is, are there ever any inspections? And is it a timely process? There are times when entering Canada by boat that a CBSA secondary inspection needs to occur. The times vary greatly. Whenever entering Canada by any mode, land, air, or boat, there may be delays due to CBSA inspections.
While we drift, we learn about history. The St. Lawrence Seaway, which opened in 1959, is amazing. It opened up the Great Lakes to ocean-going freighters and then get all the way up to Thunder Bay or Duluth, Minnesota, or into Wisconsin. But when you put dams, it stops the water, and there's some flooding. And one of the places that they flooded was a place called Chrysler's Farm. No H, it's not like the car. And that is now underwater, but it's one of the most important parts of the entire Canadian landscape when we're talking about history. Because during the War of 1812, the Americans, outnumbering the British about 10-1, attacked Chrysler's farm, and somehow the British repelled them, and it was a turning point. The Americans abandoned their entire St. Lawrence campaign after that, and this side of the river remained British and ultimately Canadian. But now it's all underwater, so they moved the monument into Morrisburg. Now that is interesting filler that explains why I'm not catching fish. Oh yeah, no. Oh, it's that guy's fault, 100%. Uncle Stevie caught dinner. And just like that, we turned it into a fishing show. Oh, that's a good one. Easy, buddy. I'm gonna make you a star. Now this is Billy. Billy the bass has just confirmed that I'm not a liar. Not bad, eh? Now, if you want a fishing tip, when you take your picture, don't hold it into you. Hold it way out because it looks way bigger. Whoa, look at that thing. It's like 73 pounds. That's a good fish. All right, we'll let this guy back in the water. Maybe it is. Let's see if I can make him jump again. Sorry, I shouldn't bass shame. Oh, you broke the line. There goes your lure. That counts. Is it on camera? All right.
Give it in the crowd. Show them how you feel.
Kenora wins the title for westernmost city in Ontario, but if you drove 2,000 kilometers eastwards along the Trans-Canada Highway, you'd find yourself at the easternmost city, Cornwall. Now, back in the day, this was a huge destination when it came to shipping. But things changed around 75 years ago, and now it's almost entirely recreational boaters.
This beautiful, calm stretch of water behind me, of which there are no boats or ships going through now, is the Cornwall Canal. Back in the day, this was the place to be in terms of shipping on the St. Lawrence River. They built this, it opened in 1843, and stayed in operation until the 1960s. It had 6 locks along its 18-kilometer route, and it was to get around those pesky rapids on the St. Lawrence River. But old, relatively small, they wanted to open up the St. Lawrence River and the shipping into the Great Lakes for those large ocean-going freighters that we saw in the 20th century. So by 1959, the St. Lawrence Seaway was opened, linking all the way into the Great Lakes, Thunder Bay, Minnesota, with the Atlantic Ocean. And this was no longer needed. Also, as part of the St. Lawrence Seaway construction, was the Moses Saunders Hydroelectric Power Generation Dam, which just rolls off the tongue. It had a massive impact, not just on shipping, but on Eastern Ontario. Because when they built it, it built up a huge collection of water behind it. That's what dams do. But there was a lot of towns and villages there. So 6,500 people were told, you gotta go, you're gonna be underwater. And they're now known as the Lost Communities of Ontario, and a fantastic scuba diving site, I'm told. But I don't scuba dive. Construction started in 1954. By 1958, this puppy was churning out the power. This is the Moses Saunders Power Dam, and it actually straddles the border. It's 32 turbines inside that. Turbines 1 through 16 operated by the Ontario side, 17 through 32 by the New York side. And when you look at the total power produced by this thing, only the Seratombec 2 hydro station in Niagara Falls produces more electricity. Otherwise, this is the big one. And on the other side, to make this happen, they had to flood that whole area. Now, that was controversial for a couple reasons. One, you had to displace people. Some had to be forcibly removed. They didn't want to leave their homes, which is understandable. Those that did have to be forced out of their homes were given fair market value, as they call it, for their homes, but contentious because this was big news, obviously. People knew this was coming, and they knew the land was going to be flooded. So their land was worth way less than it would have been otherwise. So fair market value in a depressed state doesn't seem quite so fair. What else isn't fair is they did not even consult the First Nation that is here right on what's now Cornwall Island. And this is a huge impact. It took until 2008 for what's now Ontario Power Generation to issue a formal apology, and there was a cash settlement involved in that. But throughout it all, this has been churning out electricity so you can watch Waterways TV. You see how it all comes together? And this is a good spot for a tip, a safety tip around dams. Don't get close to them. The amount of power and water that's happening on either side of a dam like this is greater than you can imagine and will not care at all about your little boat. Even if you have a big boat, compared to that thing, it's quite little. So don't get too close on either side, even if you want to go fishing there. They have warning signs everywhere. If something goes wrong, there's not much that can be done once you're right there. So stay clear, be damn safe, and I'll see you on the water. All right, take 12. Before we slept, good start. It's a thinking for you. There you go. Ooh. Just had a safety line there, and I missed the joke of be damn safe. That one was kind of garbage.
This summer of you.